Urgent and total transformation of Oranga Tamariki, including the adoption of a by Māori for Māori approach. That's the emphatic conclusion of the second part of the Children's Commissioner's report into the Under 5 State Agency. I can't recommend that report highly enough. It's on their website. Among a raft of recommendations on how to change the current system, it advocates the Prime Minister and Cabinet commit to a transfer of power and resources to Māori so at-risk pepe can be cared for within their wider whānau. Joining us now with his reaction to what truly would be a transformational change in policy is new Minister for Children, Kelvin Davis. Morena, Minister, tēnā koe. Nice to have you with us. How are you?
Morena, kia ora, e pai ana, John. Thank you very much.
We're delighted to have you in. This is a big piece of work by the Children's Commissioner. What did you make of it?
Look, I thank them very much for this report and their considered recommendations, and I'd also like to thank those whānau, those social workers, the midwives, the community organisations who shared their stories. And I think Oranga Tamariki have to admit where they've got things wrong and the changes that need to be made, and I think partnership with Māori is definitely one of those changes that needs to happen.
The only problem is that I think the Children's Commissioner, in fact, he explicitly said this, is talking about more than just change. Our view, after extensive inquiry, is that it is unlikely that Oranga Tamariki or any other iteration of it can deliver care and protection interventions and services in a way that will be most effective for Tamariki and whānau Māori. They're talking about more than a change, aren't they?
Well, we're going to move in that direction. I think it's inevitable that there is a transfer of power and resources to Māori, but the Crown cannot absolve itself of its responsibilities to make sure that every child is raised in a safe and loving family. So it needs to be a true partnership, but essentially what we have now is a very Eurocentric paradigm, and what we need to do is move towards a Māori way of working. And we've got a great example in whānau ora at the moment, and I think that there needs to be greater collaboration between whānau ora and Oranga Tamariki.
But can Oranga Tamariki make that move? Do you have confidence, for example, in Grania Moss, their CEO, to do what you require?
Well, we're just getting to know each other, and my expectation is that they will work extremely hard to implement any changes and the new direction so that it is a success. But we do have to move from what is essentially a Eurocentric paradigm way of doing things now to a Māori way of doing things.
Minister, do you have confidence in Grania Moss to make that move?
Well, like I say, we're just getting to know each other, and I'm looking forward to a positive and constructive working relationship with them. And my expectation is
so that's Oranga Tamariki. What about with Grania Moss?
Well, sorry, with the leadership of Oranga Tamariki, and my expectation is that they'll work very hard to implement the changes and the new direction so that it is a success.
You and I remember the previous iterations of Oranga Tamariki. So we go back to Children, Young Persons and Their Families Agency, SIPFA, Child, Youth and Family, SIF, Ministry for Vulnerable Children, Oranga Tamariki. We keep tweaking and we're not getting it right. And Andrew Beecroft, I thought, asked a really powerful question yesterday. Should a modern, well-resourced and thoughtful society tolerate the vast inequities for Tamariki Māori in our care and protection system any longer? Surely the answer to that is no.
Well, and you're dead right, it shouldn't be, and we're not going to tolerate it, but any change that we make, we have to make sure that we do it right. Anything that we do differently has to be better than the current system, and it's not about tweaking at the edges, it is about making some real change, and Māori are going to be at the forefront. Like I say, we've got to move from what is essentially a Eurocentric way of working to a more Māori way of working.
How do we do that? How do we do that?
Well, I've been meeting with some of the harshest critics of Oranga Tamariki, through to some Māori who actually are quite supportive of things that Oranga Tamariki has been done, and people who are saying, well, there's things that Oranga Tamariki can do differently and there's things that Māori need to do differently. So I'm meeting with the spectrum of opinions, and we're going to work together to make sure that the system does change in a very Māori-centric way so that our children, our Māori children, our tamariki grow up in loving and safe whānau.
Andrew Beecroft, the report says, and I quote, Pepe Māori and their whānau are experiencing racism and discrimination. Do you agree with that?
Oh, there is certainly elements of the system that has been racist. We just need to look at the outcomes for our tamariki Māori and Māori in general. So that's what the changes will do, is to address those. And this is why I really am interested in working with Māori to determine what the system needs to do differently and how it can be improved so that our babies are safe.
Surely if we have a branch of the state, an agent of the state that is racist, and as a result of that racism, there is a disproportionate likelihood that pepe Māori will be taken from families than any other ethnicity of baby. That is rotten, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why change needs to happen. So there will be change. And the extent of the change, who's to know, but there's going to be a shift of power and resources towards Māori, that I am confident.
What will that look like? Because I'm sorry to keep coming back to the point Andrew Beecroft makes, but it's such a good point. We've kept tweaking, haven't we? This model's kept changing, and we keep seeing the same problems, the same criticisms, the same sense of betrayal from Māori. So how can you make a meaningful change within the same structure?
By engaging with those people who are the harshest critics, by the spectrum of Māori opinion, to make sure that the system that we see in the coming years is better than the one that we have now. The details will be worked out, and whatever we do, we have to make sure we do it right.
So when Andrew Beecroft says, I do not mean more of the restructuring, the reviews, the social work improvements, the tinkering, that is the word he uses. You are promising more than that.
Yeah, we've had enough reviews. There's 4 reviews at the moment. The Waitangi Tribunal, I'm keeping an eye out on what they're saying. They're reconvening this week. There does need to be big change, but what that's going to look like is going to be determined, worked out between myself, Oranga Tamariki, and Māori interests.
For people watching this, why is it essential? And we have the Waitangi Tribunal, we have people, Jen Tahuia, we have Andrew Beecroft, the Children's Commissioner, we have so many people saying we have to get this right. Why is it essential we get this right now? Why does this matter, Minister?
Well, it matters to me as a Māori in the first instance, but secondly, we have some of the worst child abuse rates in the world, and that is just unacceptable. This government is committed to making sure New Zealand is the best place in the world to be a child, and we haven't been successful. Therefore, we need to make a big difference. We need to have these big conversations and to make those changes that are essential to ensure every child is raised in a safe and loving family.
When you talk about Māori-centric, a Māori way of doing things, are you talking about Māori-centric in power terms, or are you talking about Māori-centric in control terms or in holistic terms? What do you mean?
Well, nothing's off the table. I am prepared to listen to everything and everybody, and then together work out what needs to be done to make sure that we get this right. Because, look, I grew up in up north in a town where there were 14 whānau on the street, 13 of them were Māori, 96 children just in those 14 whānau. And I've seen there were only 3 that went on to get a university degree. Things have got to change. We can't have that level of lack of success continue. And that's what drives me and motivates me as a politician, to make sure that our outcomes for those people on that street and every other street and every other town are as good as anyone, and that they grow up in safe and loving families.
Minister, will you keep talking to us about how the change is going and what it's going to look like? We'd love to have you back regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is an essential conversation for the country.
So do I. Thank you for joining us, Minister. We really appreciate it. Kelvin Davis,
Sure.
live out of our Wellington studio. Thank you.